Welcome to the Rex Andrews Show. Glad to have you. If you are a first-time listener, thank you very much. Glad to have you on the program. If you are a return listener, we want to thank you because of you and our great guests. We have cracked into one of the top 10 fastest growing podcasts in the marketplace out there. And that's exciting for you, the listeners, because there's a couple million podcast choices now. I think it's just cracked over 2 million podcast choices in the marketplace. That's crazy. So before we get to today's guest, I always remind people our show is about people's stories, interesting people doing interesting things and interesting topics. So before we get there with our great guest today, I want to just do a little bit of the normal housekeeping stuff. Don't forget to subscribe, whatever platform you're on. That's always important so you get the latest updates. We are available on 23 different podcast distribution points. We have avid listeners on 6 continents and in 32 countries. So if we could figure out a way to market to penguins and maybe get them phones, we might have listeners in Antarctica too. Also, please don't forget to visit our guest's website today, and also the website for the show, where you have information about all of our guests, so previous, today's guests, and future. So that's rexandrewsshow.com. All right. Well, let's get on it. Today, I always like to say that we are living in a world for me where I have too many interests for just one lifetime. And my problem is just around another corner, there's just another discovery. So we have one of those discoveries today. So let me tell you a little bit about our guest, some background information. She's a mover and a shaker and does quite a bit of things. I mean, when you hear this list, she's a published author. She is an expert in what is called or referred to in wellness eco health and stuff. So she really understands a lot of that whole genre stuff like that. She's a podcaster and a host of a couple of podcasts. She's kind of a travel vagabond, been to over 49 countries, and she's not that old. So she's been around the globe a little bit, a wellness and fitness expert, a yoga aficionado, a founder of an online magazine, which I'll have her tell you about that, and then her all other business. And so welcome to the show today, our friend Stephanie Krubsack, if I could talk today. So Stephanie Krubsack. Stephanie, how are you today?
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Glad to have you. Oh, my goodness. Well, you've done quite a bit. You're not that old of a pup, so I'm going to say that you've been pretty busy. So we're going to understand where'd you get all this motivation and drive. So as we talk on our show, don't forget that we always are looking for those great ratings. I almost forgot about this, folks. I'm a well-dressed beggar. I even have a collar on my shirt today. So if you like what we're listening today, give us a 5-star. It helps us with ratings and rankings in the shows. Okay, so Stephanie, we like to learn a lot about who you are as a person. You know, we all kind of make these stops along the way in our life, and we are cumulatives of some of who we are today based on our history. So what I'd like to have you do for us is to go back in time. We want to know a list of things, and don't be fretting because I will ask questions if you don't get to all of these. And remember, it's a long list. We want to know where you were born, where you grew up, because a lot of times that's different. I had a guest that moved 63 times before she was 15. We want to understand what your youth and childhood was like. So things you were interested in, you know, sports or theater, dance, shoplifting, you know, harassing people, whatever it happened to be. We want to know what you did as a kid. We'd like to also know about your family, the types of work that your parents did and do, because that's always impactful. Sometimes it's motivation for support. Sometimes it's motivation to, I'm going to show you, or understanding of struggles. And then we'll skip through some, some stuff along there, education, those things, and then we'll slowly hop up to where you are today. So if you could help us out today, Stephanie, could you real quickly take us back? Where were you born?
I was born in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. I did not move 60 plus times, but I did move 3 times in the first grade. So maybe that's where some of that travel came from. But I grew up in northeastern Wisconsin.
Fantastic. So did you finish high school there?
I did, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So is it fair to say you might fit into the culture of the Midwest cheeseheads?
Yes, so I definitely grew up with that, but now I'm lactose intolerant, so that is a bit of a problem. I think
Oh,
we say I reached my cheese quota in a lifetime, so.
okay. You already did that. Okay, fantastic. So tell us a little bit. Did you and do you have siblings that survived your harassment?
Yes, one younger brother, so
Okay, younger brother. How many years difference between you and your brother?
only 2 years, so it doesn't really
Okay,
seem that much
not that far
anymore.
difference. Okay. How about your parents? What did your father do while you were growing up and your mother also?
My dad is an electrician, so he does kind of that type of work for paper mills, several other companies. And my mom, she works at a retail store, so she does a lot of the kind of seasonal setup, the lawn and garden, and she also does wedding cakes
Oh,
and
nice.
cookies and stuff like that on the side too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of things were you interested in growing up as a youth? How'd you spend your
Yeah,
spare time?
so yeah, I was always really interested in art. I love drawing, coloring contests, all of that. I played the oboe for many years. I
Oh,
loved
cool.
the band, so I loved writing too. A lot of poetry, things like that. So,
Quite the creative genius, huh?
mhm.
Forgot to do this real quick. So, in case people are following along, could you shout out a quick one of your websites or a social media site that you want people to connect with you at? Obviously, we're going to put your stuff on our website, but could you do that in case they're multitasking today?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say my main Instagram is SK Parfait, so Parfait, and then you can find Vegeta Magazine and Purevant Living off of that. So it's probably the easiest one to direct you. And PurevantLiving.com has my
Okay.
website with all of my podcast info on it too.
So, can you please spell your domain for the Pure Medita, if you could, please?
Yeah. So Purevant living.com.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Because sometimes we always want to make sure we find it, and sometimes people can't. All right. So you were obviously on the creative side when you were growing up, had interest in those things. Musician, that's pretty cool. You're the first oboe player I've had on the
Okay.
program. So done over 100 episodes in the first quarter of 2021, and you're the first oboe player. So you had those influences. Tell me a little bit about your family life. Or is it a typical family? Were you close knit? Were there struggles, stress? What was your growing up like?
Yeah, really close family, very large extended family too. My mom's side is Czech, so we have over 50 individuals at holidays. So a lot of fun
Oh,
growing up.
wow. Nice.
Um, and I would say too, maybe something that influenced my kind of current love of travel and everything is we did a lot of road tripping as kids, a lot of different camping and checking out national parks. So we're always kind of seeing more of the world that way. So that's
Nice.
it.
Okay. So your parents liked a little bit of adventure, get out and see the world, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Now, from a social economic perspective, did you feel you were middle class, upper middle class? I mean, where did that all fit in? I just don't understand stresses because economics can
Yeah, yeah,
contribute to
yeah,
stress.
definitely middle class. Yeah, so kind of like type of girl that makes her own way kind of thing. So I started working when I was 11, babysitting, and paid my way through college. So yeah,
Okay. So, where did you go to school in your college? Where did you hopscotch? Oh my goodness, I can't talk today. Where did you hopscotch off to when you left high school?
I went to UW-Madison actually. So
Okay.
yeah, great school. Again, another great influence of kind of getting that kind of worldly aspect of meeting people from all over. And I joined a really cool organization where they paired you with an international student. So I
Nice.
think that kind of brought about a great friend today now, even from Thailand. So yeah, so I went to Madison for 4 years, and then I tried my hand at law school for a year in Michigan. Wasn't really my forte, so I left after a year.
Okay. Wait a minute. We got to ask about that one. From a creative, artsy type person to law school. I mean, what was the thought?
I know. So, sometimes you do something because you're supposed to and you're on that track for so long, you get tunnel vision.
Yep.
And I think if I really look back at what I was truly interested in, even in Madison, I ran a magazine there, a creative a magazine called Illumination, which is still live today in Madison. And it was like my favorite job as editor in chief. And then I never actually worked for an attorney or for a firm, anything like that in undergrad. So that kind of proves that I was always more of a creative, but I thought I was supposed to go to law school, and I couldn't do it after a year. I'm like, it was good to prove I could if I wanted to stay, but it wasn't really a great fit for me. So
Oh, that's cool. Well, you have a very common story. There's a lot of people who actually start off because they're expected to go do something, and then they head in a different direction. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So are you still a Badger to the core?
I am definitely. I haven't made it to any games in person for a while, but yeah, it was such a great atmosphere going
Oh,
there.
yeah.
The community kind of comes together.
Yep.
And I'm making in trouble for saying this, but I feel like the vibe is much different than even at like a Packer NFL game. It's just a lot of community, and yeah, it was a very cool experience.
Well, you have one of those fun, cool new traditions, the jump around thing. I mean, that's kind of fun. I mean, I'm a huge football aficionado, so I've always had a lot of respect since Barry Alvarez took over the program. That's probably 20 years ago, and has had his hand stamp on it. They've done tremendous success. A lot of great stuff. So cool. All right, so you get done with school. You'd worked at the magazine there in Madison. What was your next stop?
Yeah, so I went to law school for a year, and
Yep.
then I ended up, quitting after my first year. I moved back to Wisconsin. It was 2009. I'm kind of aging myself here, but the
Okay.
economy was terrible.
Yes.
So I basically had a couple options. I was job searching, and it's getting to the point where I couldn't find anything. So I was going to go to grad school in Prague, actually.
Okay.
And I actually entered a Czechoslovak pageant in Wisconsin. So here I'm this law school dropout. I didn't even own a passport. I'd never been overseas. I ended up winning the pageant for the state, and they sent me on a tour of Czech Republic for about a month. So a really,
Okay.
really cool kind of life-changing event that kind of inspired that need to see more and keep traveling, and kind of being like a representative of the U.S. in Czech Republic, going to events and really learning the culture, meeting my family that still live there. So yeah, really great kind of turn of events.
Wow. So, I know this is probably not the topic of our show today, but real quick, what's the connection to Prague to University of Wisconsin-Madison? I mean, I know a lot of universities have unique, corridors back to all places all over the world. But was there something in particular? But you were plugged in it a little bit because of your family?
Yeah, so my mom's side of the family
Right.
is Czech, so we're very far removed, but we still have family members there. So half the family moved to the U.S., half stayed there. So yeah, this pageant that I was involved in, it's an organization in Wisconsin, and they have strong ties over there as well.
Okay.
So yeah, just kind of an interesting thing that it's not like your typical Miss America pageant. It's more
No.
cultural. I had to have the traditional clothing on, the Croy, it's called.
Okay.
Yeah, and I reconnected with older family members. It was really a really neat experience. And there's a small town in Wisconsin called Phillips where they do this pageant every year, and it's a big Czech festival. And then the national level is in Nebraska, in Wilbur, Nebraska. So it's kind of cool. It's actually a large Czech community in the U.S. as well.
Wow, that's really cool. When did your family immigrate to the United States?
1877, so
Okay.
a long time ago.
Long time ago. Okay. So, well,
Yep.
the reason I ask is there's been a lot of very successful people I've interviewed on the show who are just first generation Americans, where their parents immigrated to the United States, or another big handful of people whose grandparents were the first ones here. So you guys have been around a long time, 1874.
Yep.
That's
Fifth generation, yep.
that's about the time my family immigrated from Switzerland. So
Okay.
fantastic. Okay, fantastic. All right, so you get done with law school, you move back to, or you decide law school wasn't your thing. You get back to Wisconsin, you do the pageant thing, you go over to Czechoslovakia for the month. Did you get the travel bug at that point in time? Because you said you didn't have a passport up to that point, right?
I didn't. No, here I was 23, first time having a passport, because back in the day you didn't need one for Canada. So
Yep.
And now we can't even get in, but hopefully soon. It's a great country.
Yep.
But yeah, so I did that. I came back and I ended up finding a job in Wisconsin, and it was kind of legal related as well. So again, not always satisfying that creativity. So I worked doing government contracts at Oshkosh for about 3 years. And then I moved into kind of more marketing sales for paper manufacturing. And then I was in Wisconsin for a few years, and I ended up moving to Denver.
Oh, wow.
And with my manufacturing background, it was IT consulting.
Okay.
And working with food manufacturers. So, but this whole time I'm, food blogging, kind of keeping this creative side going and traveling internationally, kind of trips here and there whenever I could.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing more marketing with clients on the side in the CBD industry, actually, when I was in Colorado. And
Okay.
I'm still doing some of that today.
Fantastic. So, question for you. Just because I'm a Colorado native and live just outside of Boulder, uh, did you work with like Dean Foods, or what other types of food companies were you working with in Colorado before you started doing the medical or marijuana,
Hmm.
cannabis?
Well, actually, most of my clients were in California. So I worked
Oh,
with,
okay.
yeah, Jelly Belly, Gear Deli Chocolate,
Okay.
Gallo Wineries. Yeah.
Wow,
But
fantastic.
the company was in Westminster I worked for. Yeah.
Ah, well, you're just a stone's throw away. I'm in Broomfield, so
Okay.
not
Yeah.
far. Okay, that's great. Um, so you got involved in the cannabis industry. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess from my personal experience working, building websites and social media, all of that, I started working with a company that built websites for companies in this industry, and I started doing, writing articles for them, social media, copy for their website, and they're really learning, what you can and can't say legally,
Yes.
all of that. It's a very interesting space. You have to be very careful with your websites, with your advertising. In your labeling. So it just really, really interesting. So it was a lot of clients doing that, and then also kind of wellness related to or eco brands. So
Yeah. People don't understand, the laws here in Colorado, and I'm sure they are in most other states, are they have a really odd number. I think it's like 71 or 76% of any advertising for cannabis has to be immediately directable and traceable to adults, people of age. So it's not like any other industry where you can just advertise wherever you want. And it was just this January where cannabis in Colorado was able to start buying outdoor billboards. So interesting industry, very interesting. Okay. So how long did you stay in Denver?
3 years.
3 years.
So yeah,
Okay.
I loved it. I missed the mountains, but I did miss water, I will say, because I'm a big kayaker. So
Yeah.
away
Yeah.
from the Great Lakes. But yeah, I really loved it. I still have a ton of friends out there. I tried to get back at least once a year.
It's fantastic. I've lived in 7 states. I grew up here, but lived in 7 states and not leaving. So
Hmm.
anyway.
Yeah, you can go, snowshoeing in Rocky Mountain National Park in the morning and then play tennis in a t-shirt in the afternoon in Denver. I love that. So that's
Yeah.
really cool.
A lot of varieties, so much outdoor stuff, and it's a great vibe. There's since most people have a pretty healthy lifestyle orientation, so it's pretty good. It's nice. Okay, so
Definitely.
what was next after Denver?
So this is an interesting story as well too. So I was kind of, time to move on from the IT realm, and I was still doing some, kind of freelance stuff on the side for the CBD industry. So I ended up selling everything that I owned. I downsized again. I sold my car. I came back to Wisconsin briefly, and I bought a one-way ticket, and I was gone for 7 months to Europe, Asia, Africa. So I
Fantastic.
basically never had the study abroad experience when I was younger. And I'm like, it's kind of like an hour and everything. I have to do this. So I started in Portugal, hopped around to 25 countries during that time frame. And I had an apartment for a while in Prague for about 3 months of that,
Okay.
where I did some chef work for some restaurants and some corporations. So
Okay.
yeah, it was a very interesting year.
Did you go on your own, or did you have a traveling companion go with you, or?
Mostly on my own. I had a group of friends came from Denver. We spent some time in Italy and Czech Republic, Spain for a road trip. But I was mostly on my own, just kind of going here and there. I did fly my parents over at one point for 3 weeks to travel around Europe. We started in Germany and kind of did a road trip.
Yep.
And then of course, I have a big group of friends in Prague, so I kind of ended my trip there. But it was a lot of alone time too, and just meeting new people, and yeah.
So, how many languages did you speak, or do you struggle with some, or what? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I came from a very small town, so our only option was Spanish. So I was able to take Spanish in high school and a little bit of Czech. So I took some Czech classes
Sure.
as well. But I tried to learn a few words of every place I visit, just to try to, try my best. But they don't come naturally very easy to me. So yeah.
Okay. So, you did the travel abroad on your own, no semester at travel type thing. It was for that time. What was next? What was your next hop?
Yeah, so then I moved back to Wisconsin, to Milwaukee. And yeah, I started working for a company for a while in the window and door space. So I learned a ton about advertising. Yeah, billboards, and you mentioned earlier.
Yep.
So a lot of different avenues I hadn't done before, coming from more of like a smaller startup
Mm-hmm.
scene with the CBD clients. So very, very different. And then I went off and I worked for actually a CBD company in Wisconsin for a bit. So it was really interesting.
Yeah.
The FDA came out with some regulations in 2019, and that kind of changed everything for a while as far as even payment processing. So really interesting time. But I've been on my own since September of 19, running my own business full time. So doing, this type of work for companies in the eco wellness space, and then podcasting. And then Mudita Magazine, we started last March. So that's pretty new as well.
Fantastic. Well, you started right in the middle of the eye of the tornado of pandemic. Goodness gracious.
Exactly. We never had an official launch or anything. We just kind of had to and so two of us women met in yoga instructor training actually, and we graduated in January of 2020, and we came up with this idea to do mudita, which means in Sanskrit, caring about others' well-being more than your own. So we thought it was
Okay.
a really fitting name. We really wanted to honor the 6 months of training we had done, and to have this kind of wellness publication where we're helping share things about yoga, wellness, the environment, healthy recipes. And we plan to do a lot of workshops like for different corporations and things, but again with COVID we had to kind of shift to more online programming. So
Sure.
mhm.
Fantastic. So how's Mudita been doing since you got it launched?
Really good. Yeah, we're growing pretty well organically. We do have the printed version in 12 different retail locations in Wisconsin,
Fantastic.
right?
Okay.
We have artists globally. So our very first cover, actually, I have it with me. I can
Show it
show,
up.
is yeah. So it's like a small book. It's a really nice piece. But this artist is actually from Turkey.
Oh
So we
wow.
have missions worldwide, which is so amazing to see. And we like to, basically highlight the great things people are doing in the wellness and eco space. So it's been a lot of fun. Events are trying to turn on again in Milwaukee. So we had a couple so far this year, a couple more coming. So yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So tell me about the book you wrote.
Yeah. So, okay. So I have one out, one is done, but we're looking for publisher. But inspired by my Czech background and the experience I received from this trip, is kind of like a way to provide a source of revenue for this organization to maybe give this trip to another young woman for the pageant association was to do a book. So I created a storybook called The Story of Czech-Slovak Tradition. So it's like a storybook and coloring book in one. And
Nice.
basically it's about the food, the culture, the different traditions, and using my two family members is like the two characters in the story. So that's the first book I self-published here in Wisconsin. Yeah,
Now, is that available online today?
it is. Yes. Yeah, it's on my website, skparfait.com. I have it,
Okay.
and it's in a few shops in the States as well too, and a couple museums that have shops as well, kind of with Czech culture. So yeah.
Nice.
Mhm.
Fantastic. What was the pivot point to make you decide to write the book?
Yeah, well, I think, being on the trip and then coming back, and I was still unemployed because it was, again, 2019.
Yep.
And I took a month and I basically worked on it every day for an entire month, and I finished it. I did all the graphic designing myself as well, too. So it's graphic designing isn't my forte, but
Right.
but it's a fun piece, and I just was really inspired from meeting everybody over there, my
Hmm.
family, good friends, and I just wanted to share it. I think people should know about it. So
Fantastic. What was the biggest, looking back, what was the biggest thing you took out of writing the book? I mean, the lessons you learned from writing your book.
yeah, I would say that it's different if you're doing a book yourself, if you're writing and illustrating. So I think that yeah, it just felt great to be able to kind of dive deeper and, work with friends from there. Like, hey, do I have, the language correct? 'Cause I have like some Czech words in there. So it's kind of like a learning tool as well to make sure it's, covered properly. And then also reconnecting with some older family members that were kind of the family historians, like great aunts and
Yeah.
uncles. So really got close with them and kind of just realized how important it is to preserve your knowledge
Yep.
of your background, because I mean
Yeah.
a lot of us don't maybe have time or realize how important it is until maybe it's too late, or
Yep.
later in our lives, maybe we're retired, then we can travel. So I think I just kind of want to shift that mindset of like, why wait? You should
Yes.
really travel now and learn about that. So
No, I think that's awesome. Genealogy is a big part of my family and the things we do. And as we were talking off air, I can trace my lineage clear back to the 1300s in Europe. My father's family were one of the first printing press owners in Europe, and so they had their own paper watermark, which we still have today. And so I think it's important because it's so easy to get lost in today. And then the other thing I learned is when I miss it. I am just so mad at myself. My grandfather was born in 1903, and he lived all the way up till about, let's see, 13 years ago. So that would be 2007. So the amount of change he saw in his life was just amazing. He was one of 13 kids and stuff. And I still have some of his stories in my head and some written history. But if I would have been smart, I would have recorded all of that. So then I swore, okay, I'm going to help, get my dad's stories and those types of things. Life gets busy, raising 5 kids and all those good things. Well, he gets Alzheimer's and goes downhill quick, and I didn't get a time to catch it all. So I'm kicking myself. So I tell people everywhere, if you have an opportunity to catch up with your ancestors, record, even just hop on a Zoom and record a call with them and stuff, get their stories, because once they're gone, you just can't bring those back. So I really applaud you for dipping back into your culture, your history, a quote, maybe the motherland, but you've been in the your family's been in the United States for 5 generations. But no, I think that's awesome. So you said you might be looking at doing another book coming on the horizon?
yeah, it's actually done. So really great how we met. So through Mujita magazine, we had an artist. She lives in Milwaukee area. She's from Vietnam originally, and she's a really great, aspiring children's book illustrator actually. And she submitted some artwork to Mujita magazine. She's our staff artist for the year.
Oh, wow.
So we like to support local artists. So we have like postcards and things for sale on our website that we're, helping them kind of grow their business too. But really great individual. And I said, would you like to do this project with me? Because I really loved her style of art. Mom and I had made some sketches. It's called The Pale Pickle.
Okay.
And it's basically teaching kids and families about healthy eating and how there might be fake dyes or chemicals with the food industry, that it's better to be like natural, organic. And it
Right.
talks about composting, growing your own food, local farmers markets. It's a really cute story. So it was very different from my first book because it was like a really great partnership because, I had the story written and I wrote it 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And she made it come to life. But then as she's designing it, she has these amazing ideas. And she's like, well, what do you think about this? I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that, So I
Right.
really feel like it's both of our books now,
Oh, cool.
It really evolved into something new. So yeah, we have it done, the illustrations, and then there will be a paired cookbook too for kids and families, very allergy friendly. So the storybook part is done. So now we're trying to figure out, reaching out to publishing companies, or if we go the self-publishing route, is kind of our next step. So
That was going to be my next question for you. What was your plan? Were you going to self-publish or, look for that or do a hybrid? There's lots of opportunity. It's different today than it was 15 years ago, for sure.
It is. Yeah, I'm learning. And I didn't realize that a lot of the marketing is still kind of up to the author illustrator. It's not like the publishing company just takes it and runs with it anymore. So
No.
It's different. Yeah.
Yeah, you do a lot of your own hand fighting. I've been exploring that because it's kind of been one of those items I wanted to accomplish. And sometimes I wonder, Benjamin Franklin said, either do something worth the writing or write something worth the reading. Well, I'm not sure I've done either one of those yet. So yeah, it's an interesting process. And many of my guests, I think the one that's been the most prolific writer was Rhonda, and she's written like 13 books. But it's a process and it's a lot of work, and people don't realize that. And then at the end of the tunnel, you get to go do all your marketing. you get, so unless you've had a TV show or you've been in the news or you're some sort of large public political figure, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's like we have our website, our social media page.
Yeah.
We have a fun email marketing campaign I set up where they get a free coloring page if they sign up, but it's to get the traffic there, to get the followers. Yeah, it's the hard part.
Oh yeah, traffic is everything. That's what I do. That's what I do with the rest of my day. And yeah, traffic is everything. So tell me a little bit about the philosophy and what you're trying to come across with the Purevant living. Is that really a term that you've helped coin, or Purevant living wellness? Tell me a little bit more about that, because I can see a lot of people just, an exit away from me loving that over in the city of Boulder. And of course, more organic and wellness and eco-creative stuff is huge these days. But tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I've always, been passionate about, like nature and health and wellness, and kind of finding ways to preserve it. And I guess I would say it probably started back when I started food blogging and developed adult allergies. And I'm like, I need to do more. I need to share this. And, my love for nature growing, I always joke I grew up playing in the dirt because I always was outside building things, climbing trees. And to kind of bring it together. So Purevant, I made up the word. So I wanted like pure, and I wanted something to encompass all of it. And it started out as Purevant. It changed to Purevant living. So it kind of makes maybe a little more sense because it is a made up word. I did trademark it. So.
Good. Smart girl. Okay.
Yeah. So I started, kind of with shifting from like just freelancing to like putting it under my brand, where I only want to work with companies in the wellness or eco space. Like I wouldn't want McDonald's as a client because it's not true to my brand. Right. So I started with that and still doing some of that today, but then I'm like, how can I get the word out more? So I have 2 podcast series, Women in Wellness, and then Things You Should Know. So basically highlighting the great things in the eco wellness space that they're doing. So I kind of wanted it to be like a lifestyle brand where it kind of promotes all of these, all things good, I say is my tagline, where it's good for yourself and the environment. So kind of all encompassed into one. And it's kind of just shifted where I wanted it to be like where you can find healthy foods locally. Like I thought about doing maybe a database of all the stores in your town, or just kind of shifted along the way. And it probably still will shift, I think.
Fantastic. Well, I applaud you because you have all the bases covered. I look at podcasts different than most people. Podcast is traffic. Okay. So it's really rich content that brings traffic to places. That's really what a podcast should be. So sometimes people get their head wrapped around that the podcast is really the product or the thing. Well, it's usually bigger than that. It's always bigger than that. And it's very hard to monetize a podcast unless you're taking your traffic somewhere. So I applaud you, because when I talk to people about moving traffic to whatever their online or brick and mortar businesses, I say, hey, a podcast probably might be one of the things you have in your mix. So congratulations, you've done good on that. So tell me a little bit more. How many episodes have you done so far on your podcast?
Yeah, so for the Women in Wellness, I have 10 that are live on iTunes, Spotify. I have 15 more recorded. So
fantastic.
I hope people give me grace because I have recorded some over a year ago and they're amazing. So many amazing women's stories, but I've been doing it all myself. And I'm like, I probably should hire somebody to help me edit them. But and then my Things You Should Know series, I have 5 out. So it's men and women and kind of wellness, eco. So it's kind of both of it, all encompassing. And I was recently living in Mexico for a month and I recorded 5 more. So really amazing things. So I started to also record them live. So if you go to Purevant Living Instagram, you can see some of the live chats. So they're not yet on iTunes, but you can watch the video there.
Sure.
I wish I had done that from day one, but I'm starting to do the video, and then I have the audio equipment that I edit and we'll post later.
Well, I think a lot of people get, if they don't have a podcast, this is, who cares about the statement I'm about to make, but we, as someone who are building brands and doing things with content and creating communities, you need to be on almost every platform. You can't just say, well, I'll just be on podcasts because, no, man, why would you walk away with, the second largest search engine in the world is YouTube. And, 1 out of 2 people use YouTube every month. So why would you not put stuff out there? Why would you, So I always tell people, take off your puritanical hat and put your content everywhere because you want to be out there in the conversation. That's great. So what's next? What's on the horizon? What are you thinking about? I mean, goodness gracious, you're not an old kid here. I'll call you a kid because I'm 55 and I'm pretty sure I've got kids your age. Look over the shoulder here. What's next? Because you're a busy person.
Yeah, so we're really focusing on, Medita Magazine, helping that grow. We
Okay.
kind of want to get that in the hands of more individuals. It's really cool to see the age demographics. And, we're only a year out, and it's like, what is your target audience? But
Sure.
we've seen, very young, millennial ages that like love it, because it's like a lot of new age info. We talk about, crystals or, tapping and different
Yep.
mental health practices. But then also like my aunts and some of my mom's friends in their 60s absolutely love it too. So it's really great to see that it's like something nice you can read, and it's not just about advertisements. It's actually
Content. Good content.
yeah, it's stuff you want to keep on your shelf, you can refer to. It's actually actionable, helpful wellness tips and things like that, and about the environment. So that's a top priority. And then also I want to focus more on the podcasting,
Okay.
to get some sponsorships for that too, because like you said, it's difficult to monetize.
Yep.
And I don't always love asking for money, but I think that if I had more time to do and share these amazing stories, that would be super great, because I love connecting with people and sharing what they do if they might not have that voice to do it or the time to do it. And then also the children's book too. So those are probably the 3 pillars right now. So working on getting that book published as well.
So when do you have time to breathe?
Um, I take breaks here and there. I just got back from Mexico like 3 weeks ago. That was a great time to explore, the pyramids, spend time in the ocean,
Nice.
actually talk to people in person, because you can sit outside comfortably. So I think that was a great recharge. Going from cold Wisconsin, working from home, living at home, So that was a nice break. So I feel a little bit recharged again. So I can start with the grind a bit more.
Oh, one thing I forgot to ask you about Mudita is how often are you printing your print version? Because not quarterly. Okay, not everybody does that anymore. I mean, a lot of people have gotten lazy, and that's a big investment, and it's a lot of work. So hats off, quarterly. That's great.
Yeah. So we want to kind of have it seasonal, and also kind of, something new in your hands all the time. But definitely a lot of work. So we do all of the layout, the design as well. So.
Okay. So looking back after your vast amount of experiences, if you were to sit down with somebody who wanted to look at you as, hey, what did you learn over this period of time? Now, I'm not sure mentor's the right word, big sister's the right word, consultant, whatever. What would you look back where you made the pivot point to get started on your own? What would you advise somebody?
I would say that always trust your intuition and kind of what you're naturally drawn to, what lights you up inside. They say, like, maybe it's something that you like to do every day, or you wish you could do every day, like whether it's painting or reading or writing, whatever it is, that don't fight it, because you'll end there eventually, I think. Because I did things that I thought I was supposed to do. Oh, get this job as an attorney, you'll make good money.
Yeah.
Where if I hadn't been there, maybe I would have been an artist or tried something like that was a little more risky. Right. But I think if you're not true to yourself, it's just going to take you longer to get where you really need to be.
Exactly. Well, I'm impressed. You're doing a lot of great things, and not a lot of people who've done that. And one thing, you kind of skipped over the corporate world in many ways. I mean, a lot of people will go spend 10 or 15 years, much longer period of time, going through that grind to kind of figure out, oh, I should have been where you are today, kind of thing. Go to that place you are today. So congratulations. That's really good. Well, I thank you for coming on today. It's been really interesting to learn about your business. Again, throw out the websites for me so that way people can find you.
Yeah, so Mudita Magazine, so MUDITA magazine.com is one. Purevant Living, PUREVANT living.com. And then children's book and some great world travel stories, SKPARFAIT.com would be another one.
Okay. I'm not even going to bother asking you on a bucket list for travel, because you've already been to 49. You're well down the road. But I am going to ask you about a bucket list thing. I ask this of all of my guests, okay? So I've actually interviewed and had on the show. I always tell people about him because he's a great listen. Trav Bell, he is thebucketlistguy.com. So, and he talks about just living purposeful lives, and he's done a lot of things like yourself. So we all have these bucket lists, things we want to do, places we want to go, experiences, etc. But in the universe, there's always something opposite. There's a list that's things we're never going to do or never have any interest in. Okay, so this list in my mind, and actually Trav confirms this, it rhymes with bucket, and starts with an F, but I'm not going to say that. Okay, so there's a list of that F-it list that, hey, I'm not going to do it. So this is always sort of a left-hand punch unless you've caught one of the episodes where I started doing this. So I'll give you some examples. Like for me on my F-it list, I'm never going to do a sweat lodge again. I did that once. It was the most claustrophobic. When you have excessive heat, moisture, drumming, and chanting, it wasn't for me. It just wasn't for me. Another one would be sardines. I'm not eating more sardines. I don't want to open up a can of something that looks at me kind of thing. No, thanks. So what might be an item or two that would be on your F-it list?
The first one that came to mind is bungee jumping. No interest. Skydiving, I would try, but bungee jumping, just upside down, the whiplash, no, thank you. Another one that I have done, because I try most things once,
Sure.
I was in Cambodia, and my hostel was next to a bug cafe. So I had the encouragement of a friend, luckily, or I may not have done it, where we tried every kind of bug on the menu, even a tarantula, which it kind of tastes like chicken. But it was not very pleasant to me, so something I would never want to do again. But I tried it. So
a bug cafe?
Yep, a bug cafe.
Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna have to put that one on a curious list. I'm not gonna put it on a bucket list and stuff. But
Yeah.
I think when I was down in South America and stuff, I did a lot of interesting traveling around there, and you learn about bugs when you're in those types of cold, environments where they're, the heat and humidity. But I think the thing that probably would bother me the most would be the texture, isn't it?
Yeah, so they were kind of more like dried out in a sense, kind of chewy.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like gooey. You'd imagine a bug. It was like more of a dried out type, but still not very pleasant. And the texture was a little bit odd to me.
Yeah.
Like the crickets but the tarantula was more like dehydrated. So, but I could only do a leg of that because I was like, no, I can't. That's where I draw the line,
You're have a slice of bold that I don't have on that one. I might try it. Anyway, well, you've been great. It's been good to learn about you. Thank you for being transparent. I want to have you back on the show once your next book is out and kind of see where things are with the magazine and your lifestyle website. I think it would be fantastic to get you back on. So thank you for coming on today, Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Okay. Well, until next time, folks, we'll call this a wrap for this episode. Please do not forget to stop by the show website, rexandrewshow.com, so you are getting all the latest episodes, looking at the bios and links, because we'll have all of Stephanie's information out there, plus the other folks we've been out there. We were a little over 100 and some episodes to date, so there's a lot of content out there. So until next time, don't forget these 3 things I always say. Be safe, but be bold, and make it a great day.